Good morning, everyone. My name is Tammy Sadler-Jones. I'm the Assistant City Administrator, and I'd like to call to order the License and Variance Board meeting at 10:05 p.m. We apologize for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. To my left is Roy Akery, the Fire Chief, and to his left is Scott Stokes, the Director of Public Works. Christiana Craddock is the Executive Assistant to the City Administrator, and she will be taking the official meeting minutes. First item is a public hearing. Privilege license request LIC 2016-16 beer and wine pouring 1501 Windy Hill Road, Gonna Fly Now LLC, DBA Fox Creek Golf Course, with Gautam Pantakar as the agent. Can you step to the podium, please? And I apologize if I mispronounce your name. And for the record, can you state your name, please?
Yeah, first name is Gautam, last name is Patankar.
Okay, all right. And have you received a copy of the city's alcohol beverage ordinance?
I believe I have, yes.
Okay, and have you read and do you understand that ordinance?
Yes.
And do you agree to abide by it?
We do, yes.
Okay, all right. And it's our understanding that you've completed the responsible alcohol sales class?
I have.
All right. And can you explain to this board what steps you have in place to make sure that your employees do not sell alcohol to underage persons?
Yeah, our company recently bought Fox Creek, so we actually have a whole serving training manual that we put everybody through. So before we hire everybody, they go through the training class that we have in-house. They also have to get the license, obviously, to be able to pour through the city. And then we monitor them daily. We have different check-in, check-out lists. You know, we work closely with them. So we go through the normal food and beverage processes to make sure everybody's trained on alcohol pouring, serving, underage drinking, and all that kind of stuff. Sure.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir, could you just highlight a couple of things from that policy that, the type of training? Is it, some businesses have practices that say, if they basically card everybody regardless of how old they look. Are there some things that you can pull out of your training or policy that you could highlight for us?
Well, we have a under 40 rule right now. So if you look under the age of 40, we make sure that we card you. Just ask for your license to make sure that you're obviously of age to drink. Because it's a golf and country club, we have several different areas that serve beer through the day, whether it's the beverage cart or it's the grill room area. So we do have checks and balances in place to make sure that nobody has overserved anybody in different areas. Obviously, like I said, we check licenses. We go through the training class that we have over here pretty extensively with every employee so they understand if somebody looks inebriated. We go through the process of giving them water and food before we send them home. All that, all those basic training things that we have in place to make sure, just like a normal restaurant does. But we spend a lot of time with the employees since many of them are young. So this might be their first food and beverage experience. So we do spend a lot of time with them before they go out and serve to anybody.
And can you explain to us what your role is at the golf course?
Yeah, I'm the general manager at Fox Creek, and I also am the vice president of operations for Mosaic, who just purchased the facility.
Okay. Any other questions?
What are your work days and work hours typically?
My personal ones?
Yeah.
I'm Monday through Saturday, basically. So I come in Mondays between 7:45 and 8 o'clock. And then I usually leave between, some days it could be 5, some days it could be 7. It all depends on, on the actual job that's going on for the week. And then we do have an assistant manager, Steve Wagner, who's in the back, who also covers during the day. So one of us is always there during the golf course operations.
All right. Do you understand from time to time the Smyrna Police Department may do undercover investigations, and if anybody does sell to a minor, that they will be taken to jail immediately?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Right.
And the Smyrna Police Department did do a background investigation, and there is no information that would preclude issuance of this particular privilege license. So with that said, this is a public hearing. If anyone else would like to speak, I ask that you please step to the podium at this time. All right. Seeing no one, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
A motion to approve a public hearing for a privilege license request, LIC 2016-16, beer and wine pouring at 1501 Windy Hill Road, Gonna Fly Now, LLC, DBA Fox Creek Golf Course, with Mr. Patankar as agent.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve privilege license request LLC 2016-16. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item is a public hearing, variance request V16016, allow 2 accessory structures within the side yard for temporary storage, 0.328 acres, land lot 631, 1725 Spring Road, Sky King Fireworks. There's someone from Fire King here. Okay, all right. Can you please step to the podium and tell us about your variance request, please?
Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning.
Good morning.
I'll get it right on the third try.
Yeah.
My name is Parks Huff of the law firm of Sam's Larkin Huff and Bally, and I apologize. I know y'all were expecting to see Garvis here, but he's in the hospital, so I picked up this case. So I've been working on it since he went to the hospital a couple of weeks ago. But this is a variance request for a Sky King Fireworks company that leases a building at the intersection of Spring Road and Spring Street. This is a building was vacant for many years, and Sky King came in the community and actually wanted to do a brick and mortar store versus doing the tent sales in a parking lot. And they leased the building, and they spent a significant amount of time with your staff. And I dotted every I and crossed every T multiple times, and was very complimentary of working Mr. Gruball, and had spent over $150,000 rehabbing the building, making it a business that's open 365 days a year, or during the normal business hours. But obviously they have a need for seasonal storage at the crunch time, which is 4th of July. And we initially asked for 4 storage containers, 2 on each side of the building. We got some negative response from staff, so we said, listen, what can we do to make this a reasonable request? So we reduced it from 4 down to 2. And we put the 2 on this side, and I thought we were going to be able to do displays, but I think y'all don't have that set up. But so I'll hand them out to you. It's very small on there.
Thank you.
What these 2 pictures show is what we want to do is figure a way that we can work with the city for a business owner that has been responsible, come in the city, spent significant sums, to be able to operate year-round and handle that seasonal crunch. And the original request was for 60 days prior to the 4th of July and 30 days prior to January 1. Again, because we've tried to work with staff, and we keep trying to come forward with different alternatives, and we yet have gotten them to come and back to us with something that they will work with us on. So we're down to, and this is it's changed yesterday, if we can just have 2 storage units for 30 days prior to July 4. That's all we're talking about. And this is a reasonable request, and you can see from the photographs, this is on the side of the building that is least visible from the traveling public. It's on Spring Street side. There's a topography coming down grade-wise there. And so this is a perfect location. There's already a structure. The dumpsters are on that side, and the storage containers are, muted color. They won't, look any different than the side of the building. During their remodeling, when they were working on the remodeling, they had 4 of them out there, and they had received no complaints from anybody. Your ordinance has a specific provision related to temporary structures and temporary sales certificates. relating, and it deals with different things. One of the things it relates to is tree lots. And across the street is a temporary tree lot with 2 temporary structures on it that are opened up for Christmas time. So we're not talking about something that's outside of the realm of what your code already provides. We're just talking about filling a hole that your code has. This is a business that has spent a lot of time and money being invested in your city. And I've never had a situation where we can't come up with something that would allow a reasonable amount of outside storage for a short period of time. We're throwing out ideas of buffering, landscaping. We'll do any of it. And again, I mean, I'm disappointed that the staff has not come around to any ideas that would be acceptable to them. We drove around the city, and this is a good example of what we're talking about. This is on the Concord Road side of the CVS, which is right over here. I don't know that any bells and whistles went off in the city that CVS has got a storage unit that's, I don't know how long it's been sitting behind their building, but it's visible from Concord Road. It's on the Concord Road side of the CVS, right down from City Hall here. Why is that such a big deal? And what we're proposing, I mean, why is that not a big deal when what we're proposing is? This is right down from our building, the Habitat for Humanity on Spring Road. It's a large storage container that sits right out in front of the building, between the building and Spring Road. And again, this is why we look around and we think what we're asking for is a reasonable request. There is a hardship because we don't own the building, we lease the building, so we can't make improvements to the building. Or expand the building without the landlord's approval, and they won't allow us to expand it. In addition, it would be silly to create a larger building for a short-term use that's only needed for 30 days. So we do have a hardship in the fact that we are leasing the building, that our business has this seasonal need, which is no different than when Costco has their tree storage out there for Christmas period of time. And I know Costco is not in the city, it's in the county. But again, Lowe's and Home Depot have a similar need, where they have trucks parked there, tractor trailers parked there. So we need some help. We're a responsible business. We've worked with your staff on getting the place open with extensive fire requests that are reasonable relating to our business. And we expect the city to work with a responsible business owner, because we have to compete with the people who come in and set up tents and may or may not pay sales tax, won't employ people, won't really be adding to your property tax base. We have occupied a vacant building, so we ask for your consideration of this request. Allow us 30 days for the storage units to be next to the building, and let us work with staff to come up with fencing and landscaping that would be appropriate in there. Quite frankly, with a 30-day period, I think it might be, we put this together, but it seems rather silly to do all this for a 30-day period. But we'll do whatever y'all think we should do. We'll be responsible for it, but that's all we need. And Chris is here with Sky King. He flew down from Ohio, where he's based out of, and they take this very seriously, and they're very responsible business owners, and look for your consideration. We'll be glad together to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll have the staff make comments. Joey Stobbs, please.
Could I ask the applicant just
Sure.
a couple before we hear from staff? I just have a couple of questions, and you guys can decide who answers. The first one, help me understand a little bit more about Sky King. I'm assuming it's a national company, so you have retail facilities and locations in multiple states. Is that correct? And I mention this because I know that we've received correspondence that's kind of given us some background information on what a typical Sky King retail store would look like with regard to square footage. So could either one of you or both of you talk to us about how big is a typical Sky King store with regard to square footage?
Yeah, I'll answer it, then Chris can fill in. I mean, the typical is based upon what, looking around, and they don't build new buildings for their business, so I don't know that there's a typical square footage.
Okay, so let me rephrase it. I'm referring specifically to the correspondence that we got from you guys, where you referenced this particularly, where you said, and I'm going to paraphrase, so correct me, but something to the effect of a typical store that this company has is around 7,000 square feet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'd say the average.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Yes, they range from 3,000 square feet up to 12,000 square feet.
Right. And this property that you guys are leasing now currently in the city of Smyrna is how many square feet?
It's like 2,980, I think is what it is. It's a little bit
But just
slightly
under
3,000. Yeah.
Okay. And I tell you, in my mind, I know that you guys are familiar that any variance request that comes to city staff and ultimately comes to this board has to be measured by 4 standards that we have. And one of the primary standards is whether any alleged hardship is self-created by any person having interest in the property. And I'm reading it verbatim here. So that's kind of what I'm trying to wrap my brain around, whether this hardship that you guys state is self-created, and specifically, if you have retail stores, this is not the first time you didn't just open Sky King. You have stores in multiple states. You know what it takes for your retail business, and I realize that when you come and look here in the state of Georgia, and specifically in the city of Smyrna, you're not looking at building a new facility, so you're having to choose from stock that's available. I get it. But if you know that you need more square footage, but yet you lease a significantly smaller building here in the city of Smyrna, what I'm wrapping my brain around is whether or not that's a self-imposed hardship.
And I can address that in a couple of ways. I mean, one, your ordinance does not totally prohibit accessory outdoor storage.
Right.
And there is some interpretation as to where that can be. I could argue that I could create an argument that we don't even need a variance, that we could put it there as long as we put it closer to the building.
Yeah, I'd probably disagree with you, but
you might.
That's okay. Yeah.
You might. I mean, your ordinance has
Right.
a provision for some accessory outdoor storage.
Sure, and you've given us, 2 pictures of at least one of what would be an accessory structure.
And I mean, located behind this is, there's open dumpsters without any enclosures. So, I mean, there's a lot of outdoor stuff that is done. The other thing, there's a wide variation in how this business operates. One of the ways that one of their competitors operates is they'll lease a 1,200 square foot space and then set up a tent in the parking lot during their time of sales when it's booming. And they've chosen a different model where they have a bigger brick and mortar, rent more space, but then they're not spilling out in the parking lot with sales and tents and things like that.
Right.
So their business model is a little different. And again, I come back to that this is only for a 30-day period. Looking right across the street, there's Christmas tree sales that happen during that time. This is no different than Christmas trees. I mean, this is a seasonal sales like Christmas trees. We've come up with ordinances that accommodate that, and your ordinances do that, and there's no reason why this couldn't be accommodated for a brief, temporary accessory. And your ordinance doesn't deal with it as a temporary; it just says accessory. What we're saying is this is a temporary accessory. And again, it's kind of a gap in your ordinance in that it doesn't have a provision for temporary storage for seasonal needs. I'm sure that if coming around Thanksgiving, if y'all were hyper vigilant, you would see that most retailers have some storage that comes in to handle the Black Friday. So there's kind of a gap there, and there's a gap in our request in that we're not asking for a permanent accessory structure. We're asking for a temporary.
Right. And I think more specifically, really the issue that we're kind of struggling with is you're certainly correct that there are accessory structures in the city, and this board has granted variances for accessory structures, but this is a request for more than one. That's kind of a big issue. And then, at least for me, I've got this thing that I'm struggling with is whether or not the hardship is self-imposed. You know, we do commonly grant variances when the variance request can meet the standards that all variance requests, whether they're residential or retail, commercial, anything, they have to all meet these standards, and they're there, you know, for a reason. We certainly are not in a position or have the intent to create any type of hardship on any retail business. We're glad that you're here. We want to be supportive and be great partners, but we've got to hold all variance requests to these standards. And if we don't, why are we here? You know, so. And then I've got some more questions, but you know, you've mentioned it twice about the tree lot that's there, and I think that you mentioned that there were two structures, and part of the questions specifically only because you mentioned I'm going to have for staff, but I believe that there are two structures as you've stated on that lot, and if that is the case, then that would not be two accessory structures. An accessory structure, by definition, would be one in addition to primary. You know, so you've given us a picture of a storage unit behind CVS close to City Hall that would be an accessory structure, but again, it's one accessory structure, and we're contemplating your variance request as you've given, which is for two.
Thank you.
You from not Spring, but from I can't remember the name of the street, but next to Rev.
This is the tree lot that you're
this
referencing.
is the view, and that's that smaller structures in the back closer to that side street.
Right. So there are two. The picture that you gave us shows us two structures.
Yeah.
One would be the primary structure, and one would be a single accessory structure.
Closer to that side street.
Okay.
And I'm not saying. I'm just saying that no one notes that. I mean, it's set up for temporary, use for a seasonal period of time. We're asking for something that would not be less attractive. And if you can't grant two, we'd ask you to grant one accessory structure.
Well, the variance request in front of us is for two. That's the only thing that we can really, make a decision on and ask questions about today.
I wanted to note too that even in our 12,000 square foot stores.
Speaking to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the records the minutes are recorded. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Even in the 12,000 square foot stores that we still have temporary containers because we need it because our window is so small that it's so difficult to get product into the store so quickly because the last 2-3 days, almost really 2 days, it's such a rush that it would almost be it's very difficult to have shipments come and get it into the store that quickly. So it just really helps us, and it'll help us grow too, and stay there. So it's a necessity for our business, and that's why we're applying for the variance. If we could get away without it, we would. Yeah. But it's like a necessity for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? All right.
Good morning. This is regarding the variance request 1725 Spring Road for Sky King Fireworks. They've requested to allow two accessory structures in the side yard. That was originally it was 4. Now they've amended it to 2 storage containers for Well, the request as it was submitted to me was for twice a year, for a 30-day period before 4th of July and a 60-day period before 4th of July and a 30-day period before New Year's. The current store is approximately 2,900 square feet, and the like it says in their correspondence, their stores nationwide are, on average 7,500 square feet. So, in our analysis, our ordinances have been in place prior to them moving into this building. We didn't just adopt certain ordinances after they moved in. These were, they've been in the code for years. So they had knowledge that these restrictions were in place when they moved into this facility and made the improvements necessary to meet fire code that were also in the code for however long. They weren't retroactively required to meet certain requirements that, once they were in there. So, that being said, they knew their storage requirements, and they knew the space they generally need to operate a business, and chose this location regardless. So in our analysis, we do think that it is a self-imposed hardship. Despite that it is a self-imposed hardship, our accessory use ordinance has certain requirements that applies to accessory uses or structures, temporary or otherwise. We don't make the distinction temporary or permanent. Part of those restrictions, we restrict how many accessory structures can be on a property, what the size of those structures can be, the height. We also prohibit shipping containers from being used as an accessory use or structure. I can read the exact wording because I'm paraphrasing, but it goes, it's a two-sentence description of what basically summarizes to a shipping container. There are, throughout the city, as you all know, because we hear about them every time there's a variance, that there are non-conforming structures and uses out in the city. Every time somebody's asking for a variance, they point out all the other non-conforming structures. And we're not here to account for every structure or use in the city that's non-conforming. They've either been here in the city prior to our zoning ordinances or through some variance process or whatever, they were approved. The seasonal tree lot across the street, that lot was approved by mayor and council as a seasonal sales of Christmas trees. And so whatever, and it's been there, I don't know how long, much longer than staff has been employed with the city. So whether it was prior to certain accessory use structures ordinance being in place, I don't know. But the fact is, it's been here a long time and it was approved by mayor and council. The accessory structure at CVS was not approved by staff. So whether, it is a violation of the ordinance or however it turns out to be, city marshals will take a look into that, but it wasn't approved by the city. So using that as a basis for approval would be unwarranted. We've recommended denial on this. It's not on the basis of safety. We don't have any reasons we haven't been brought forth with any information that would cause us to to see this as a safety issue. They're shipped here in those shipping containers, and they don't explode. There's no reason for us to think that there is a safety issue. Our analysis and recommendation is purely on the fact that what the accessory use and structure ordinance requires or prohibits. And it's strictly on that basis that we recommended denial. Additionally, because we don't think there's a hardship, their own correspondent says they operate stores nationwide 7,500 square feet, and this one is 2,900 square feet. So obviously there's a difference in square footage there that would require additional storage. We don't think it's fair for the city to take that burden for their own outside storage needs. So whether it's screened or not, the screening that's proposed would not even screen the structure because it's 8 feet high. And you know, it would take a 10-foot fence or whatever to screen that. So we don't think that is a viable solution to screen it. And then the accessory use structure ordinance flat out prohibits shipping containers, which is what they're proposing to use. Staff has worked with the applicant and provided alternatives and solutions to what we would consider. So I'm not sure why the applicant would say otherwise. We've recommended an expansion of the building, that we would support an expansion of the building. We've asked about off-site storage, bringing the merchandise in, why that is not a viable option. We've asked for any explanation why their operational needs require these at first 4 shipping containers. Why did you need 4? Like, why can't you just have 1 and rotate it in on a temporary basis? We didn't have any response to that. So we have worked with the applicant. We have brought forth alternatives that we would support. This request we don't support simply because it's a violation of what the ordinance requires. So,
Joey, I have a quick question for you. And you may or may not know the answer to this off the top of your head, but do you know whether or not a roll-off, what I would call a roll-off dumpster that's parked in front of a commercial property, let's just say permanently, is that an accessory structure, or would that be considered an accessory structure?
It would be an accessory structure.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about your recommendation regarding the idea of one container being brought in and rotated on a periodic basis. Can you clarify that a little bit? What are you referring to? A shipping container? Or?
Well, not a shipping container, because it's prohibited in the ordinance, and we're not supporting anything that I don't think we have the authority to approve something that is such conflict with the ordinance. But if it was some other accessory structure that wasn't a shipping container, and there was one of them, we would look at that differently.
Okay.
Let's kind of, if I could build off that for a second and kind of rephrase it, or maybe that's not the right word, but because I could argue that, specifically, I get it that the ordinance, when you're talking about, a single accessory structure, how it is worded to prohibit a shipping container. But, if you're talking about consumer fireworks, I don't know that a steel shipping container wouldn't be the safest, with regard to storage, regardless of where it is and whether it's an accessory structure. That would probably be safer than some type of a wooden structure that's more permanent. But kind of back to what the chairperson was asking, and I realize that the variance request in front of us is for two accessory structures. But do you think that it would be a different set of considerations for staff if the variance requests were just for one? And I only mention it, and I'm sure that that the chairperson did too, because the comment was made from the applicant that well, if we can't have two, then we could ask for one, kind of thing. So I know that, and I realize that there'd be different contemplations, because now then we'd be talking about, okay, we're down to a single, but the fact that it would be a still shipping container. And then, because there's a lot of information and literature out there about the safety of shipping containers with regard specifically to consumer fireworks. As you've mentioned, they're shipped internationally in these containers, without issue. So that's a long way to go about saying, do you think from a staff perspective that it would be a different contemplation if we were talking about one instead of two?
Okay. If it were,
sorry for the confusion.
If it were not a shipping container, yes. I don't think staff has the authority to recommend something that conflicts, that the ordinance prohibits, because that's mayor and council level requirement that they put in there.
Right.
I don't know why, but if it were some other structure, staff would support that.
Okay.
But maybe the board can make that decision, but I don't think staff has the authority to recommend a shipping container.
Okay. Got some other questions?
Well, what about, I know the applicant had mentioned something about tents in parking lots. What's the city's requirements, or are there any for such things as that?
Tents, they fall under a special event, which they have to submit an application that gets reviewed by the business license and fire marshals. May or may not have council approval. I think it does need council approval. And they just have to show a plan stating what they're proposing to do and what kind of tents they're having, and just they have to prepare a plan that explains what their request is.
Is there a typical duration for that, or is that just something the applicant asks for and then is approved by council?
Right. I don't think that we have an ordinance on that, but whatever they request, is what we analyze.
Okay. You had some other comments?
Yeah, I can answer a couple of those questions. The city ordinance on temporary sales certificates provides that you could have for a seasonal event for Christmas trees it's a 3-month period of time, but for other seasonal things it's 2 weeks. So we could ask for, and you'll see that 2 weeks before 4th of July, you'll see some shopping centers go up with the tents and they'll do those displays. We don't do that, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to keep our building functional. The idea of bringing in either storing off site or putting them on a Ryder truck and parking it in front of our establishment or to the side, we could have Ryder trucks come and go. I think that's a lot more obtrusive than putting the two safe containers that would allow us to get in and out of the material for sale, than having trucks coming and going. And maybe we might park our truck there for a week or so with material and then unload it and load it. I don't think there's any violation in the code with that. That's a lot more obtrusive and obstructive to the neighbors than what we're proposing, which is low profile, beige colored storage facility that, to your point, is very safe and proven safe. If we go with storage in some storage facility close by, which is another staff comment, we again have to bring trucks back and forth, and also then you don't have the security of knowing that it's stored in a place where appropriately stored. Someone might allow us to use the back of their warehouse and put it in there, and y'all probably wouldn't appreciate that as much as knowing that it's in a container that is certified as safe for this type of material and in close proximity, so we don't have to have vehicles coming and going. And again, might have to park a truck there for a little while it sits, while it can be unloaded into our facility. So really what we're trying to do is come up with something that's a win-win for everybody, that is least impactful on people, that doesn't have a truck sitting out there with material in it for periods of time as we trying to store it, using material that's colored in a way that it's muted. And we'll plant some trees and such, and some landscaping, whatever we can do with staff. So that's kind of, I think, answer some of your questions.
I've got a question for you. The material or the commodity that will be stored in the storage containers, is that the same commodity that is sold as display on the floor, or is it different commodity?
Same commodity, and it's just being able to access it and bring it in the store when supplies are depleted inside the store. No sales occur from inside that.
What are the typical hours of operation of the store?
Give them typical and then Brian.
Typical is 10 to 8, and then around the 4th we go 9 to 10 o'clock at night.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions before we open up the public hearing?
I want for staff.
Okay.
The applicant mentioned something about bringing maybe a tractor trailer in there with a trailer on it. Is that allowed? Could they bring in a tractor trailer and park it on the lot, park it in a parking place and let it sit?
The ordinance defines that as an accessory structure too, because it says with axles or without axles. This is what it says verbatim. Structures or buildings commonly transported with or without axles and or wheels and or built upon a metal frame for transport, including but not limited to a receiver tongue for transporting, shall not be used as an accessory use or structure.
Okay.
Got any more questions?
Someone needs to tell Goodwill they've got about 10 trucks parked out in front of their store that are pretty much permanently there in and out. So I take exception with the comment that a truck is an accessory structure.
All right, at this time, if this is a public hearing, if anyone would like to speak regarding this issue, I ask that you please step to the podium at this time.
Good morning. I'm Walter Wiesberg. I own the property directly behind Sky King. I have a couple of choices on that. My concern with this is the proximity to my building. That particular building has already had one variance with a setback that has reduced it from what the regular setback is to within 8 feet of the property line. Their building currently is 68 feet from my building. The container they're talking about would be approximately 80 feet from my building. That container also would be 140 feet from a daycare center. Now, you were mentioning that a steel container is perfectly safe. And the comment was with these other temporary buildings and these other temporary storages and for example, a Christmas tree lot, trying to compare Christmas tree sales to fireworks storage is ridiculous. There is a safety hazard with fireworks. That's why all of the sprinklers are required to be installed in the building. The containers, I would say, are probably safe when they're closed and there's no access. But the movement of the material in and out, I think, opens up a potential danger. And like I said, that container, with it being open, would be 140 feet from a daycare center. I've spoken with the people over there. They are not in favor of having that there. I would also endorse or back your theory that this was a poor choice of a building. If your knowledge is that you're going to have this seasonal kind of thing, whether you need the excess storage, you chose the wrong building to begin with, and we should not be burdened with that poor choice. So I would ask you to not accept this or not approve this for safety reason and for aesthetics reason, even though they're saying that they can put fencing or whatever around it. It's still a storage container stuck next to a building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next app.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am here. My name is Andy Jones. I live on Spring Drive across from the International Farmers Market. And my concerns are about this issue or as a Smyrna citizen of 48 years and as a homeowner and as one who passes this location twice a day, sometimes 4 times a day. So the first issue is there is a safety issue. We need to clarify that. And the first subject that I have to mention on the safety issue is electricity. And I have physically observed that the power going into this building has been covered with a boot. I'm not sure what the appropriate term would be for that, but that has not been there before. So I noticed that this is a new addition, so I'm assuming that that was put there because this building now has fireworks in it. The second issue on electricity that I'm concerned about is that there are 2 rusted transformers on a power pole that is right next to the building. That concerns me simply because there are fireworks in this building now. The next point I'd like to bring up on the safety issue is water. And I'd like to note that the water going into this building was increased after the building was occupied by this business. I find that very concerning. Seems to me that should have been done before they moved in. So that's a concern for me. And obviously, if there's more need for water, that means there is a safety issue. So on the second, that's the first and second point under safety. The third point I'd like to bring up is on signage. And again, this is an observation that I've made, that the signs of this new business are on the front and side of the building, which is different from what it was before. And by the way, this building has not been vacant. There's been businesses in this location. Georgia Pond was occupying this location in the past, and actually it was a church for a while. So the issue of signage, and you had to evaluate whether the sign code was broken or not. So normally businesses have a sign on the front of the building, but obviously they're in need of sales, so they probably requested to have a huge sign on the side of the building so they could make a profit. The fourth issue, safety issue, we're talking about storage here and storage containers. To me, there should not be a container at all. The issue is not the container. The issue is the fireworks. Yes, I can understand a business needing extra room for product. Dollar Tree, any businesses in Smyrna, I can understand that need for excess storage. I can understand that. I've worked in retail, understand the flow and process of trying to keep shelves filled up for making sale. But the issue is, this is a safety issue. It's not a matter of whether it should be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It's the issue of it being safe. So I am totally opposed to any container simply because it has fireworks in it. And I say that because I used to drive a forklift, and I know the risk in moving flammable materials around. And I used to drive a forklift loading trucks in containers for a chemical company. So I know that there are fire hazards as a result of that. I didn't realize I had a limit on my time. Do I not?
No.
Okay, thank you. So I do have experience and common sense tells me that a fork of a forklift running into the side of a metal container has the potential for making a spark. Common sense tells me that that is not safe in unloading and distributing fireworks from a container to the building where it's going to be sold. The next point I'd like to mention is the proximity of this business to adjacent businesses in the area. That should be enough reason not to have this business here in the first place. There's several auto businesses. Common sense tells me that if you have an auto business for whatever reason, that you naturally have chemicals or flammable product within these businesses. And you also have a hair salon where people are close by. I personally visited one across the street, and when I went in, it was full. They were running a very good business. It was full. And then, as what was mentioned earlier, there is a daycare right across the street. There's also a veterinary clinic across the street. And then also there's residential across the street. I personally spoke to a fireman about this issue because I was very concerned about it. And he is employed by Cobb County. And I asked him what he thought about, fireworks in general being sold inside of an urban area, which is what we are or will be if we're not considered that already. And he said he would not want one of these businesses in his neighborhood. And I said, what would happen if one of these caught fire? And he's told me, I was really surprised. He said that you'd have to evacuate everybody. And then he said, we just had to let it burn out. So that's very concerning to me. The next point I'd like to mention is insurance. Will our insurance as homeowners go up as a result of this business going in long term? And then there's other related issues there as well. I'm not a CPA. That's not my professional, and I'm not an expert in that area. But common sense tells me that if there's more risk in the area, then insurance rates would go up. And I don't know, the insurance for City of Smyrna might have to go up as a result of this. I don't know the answer to that question. So, but as a homeowner, it really concerns me because I personally, the last holiday, New Year's, we had people shooting fireworks in a cul-de-sac one street over. And that was a concern to me because people were shooting after midnight. And I know now, after talking to Tammy, that because of this last legislative session, obviously this is an ongoing issue with fireworks coming down from the state level. I understand that. But evidently those laws have been amended to not shooting after 12 midnight now. So, which is encouraging, which is a step in the right direction. But as you know, we have a city ordinance of 9 o'clock for the noise ordinance, if I understand it correctly. So it doesn't quite make sense to me for a business moving in to override the current noise ordinance to accommodate a business coming in so they can make profit. So there's other issues involved here. So that issue of insurance and then the noise ordinance. And going back to just my neighborhood, I was really disturbed that I actually had neighbors up the street from me. You know, this whole thing is opening up a whole wide range. You know, obviously, Georgia has not had legal fireworks for as far as I've been alive. We've always had to go to Alabama to shoot fireworks. So, but I guess the real question is, what is the zoning concerning fireworks? And so I actually had neighbors up the street shooting fireworks off in the middle of the street. And it concerned me because it was a parent and child. And in my mind, that doesn't set a very good example for shooting off fireworks. And we're not really talking about, you know, small fireworks here. I received a flyer in the mail last week promoting their sales. And these are not just bottle rockets like we used to shoot off on the edge of the lake in Alabama. These are whole series of fireworks. They come in kits, and we're talking about spending $100 to $200.
Let me interrupt you. Can you get back to the topic of the variance? Would you mind getting back to the topic of the variance?
So you want to hear about this?
Well,
we just got some other people that may want to speak.
Okay.
And we certainly all appreciate and hear everything that you're saying. I think all he's trying to say is let's stick, the variance application and the request before us today is whether or not to allow 2 accessory structures in the side of this business. I understand what you're saying. Technically, you're only supposed to have 5 minutes for public comment. We've given you the opportunity to go an additional 7.5 minutes on top of that. And if you haven't, then we'll give you more time. But let's just try to keep it relevant to the actual variance request.
So this is not relevant. This is what I received in the mail.
Okay.
So, so it is a safety issue for people shooting fireworks in the middle of the street. And
that's kind of my point. We're not contemplating whether or not it's safe for somebody to use consumer fireworks in the street. What we're contemplating is whether or not there should be 2 accessory structures at this building.
Yes, sir, I understand that. But this is related to, I guess my point is, this business should not have been allowed to come into the city in the first place, or we wouldn't be having this variance request.
You understand that there are state laws that prohibit cities and counties from restricting the use of consumer of fireworks. There are state laws that keep cities and counties from saying yes you can or no you cannot have this business in our municipality, in our city or county. We can't do that. So the only thing that we can do is measure whether or not this business, when they come in originally for a business license, if it meets the standards of any other business as allowable by state law. And they do, and they did.
The real issue here is whether this building met code for them to move in the first place.
And being the fire chief and the fire marshal works for me, I can answer that specifically for you if you'd like. You mentioned the increase in the capacity for water. That's because they were required to have what's called a 13. It's a National Fire Protection NFPA 13 full sprinkler system, and it's not a residential sprinkler system. It's a commercial sprinkler system. So. The businesses that occupied in that building before, the code did not require them to have that. But because of the type of business that they have, consumer fireworks sales, they were required to have a full 13 to be compliant. And they did that. And, so...
and what code was that you used in order to allow this business to move in?
Well, there's no specific code.
That's a zoning issue.
May I clarify? It's my understanding that there's 2 different kinds of codes, 2 different sets of codes. And the city of Smyrna is responsible for only allowing businesses into the city that follow code. And I am personally aware that there's more than one set of codes, right? There's one that's strict and one that's more lenient. Is that not true?
That is not true, no.
Is there not a set of codes for the city and state and another set for national?
Okay, so again, I don't want to convolute or confuse the topic at hand and what's what we're contemplating today. And it might just simply be a terminology difference, but when you're talking about codes that we enforce are national codes, the things that we adopt what's called the state minimum standard. State minimum standards are based off of national standards. We have one set of building codes in essence that we make businesses adhere to, that there isn't a strict set and a lenient set. You might be talking about codes versus ordinances, but I think that, Rusty, did you have a comment?
I'm going to clarify
Okay.
his question for him. I mean, Georgia is a home rule state, so the municipalities get to make up their codes and ordinances.
Right.
The fire department decides, the city decided the fire was going to follow the state minimum standards, and they've chose to do that. Our zoning ordinance is a unique ordinance to Smyrna. We have our own requirements, and we have our own uses.
That is a little distracting, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. The zoning code is going to identify which uses are allowed and which properties. This property has a general commercial zoning classification. It is our most intensive retail and commercial use. So we're when a business license comes in, we are looking at the use that they're proposing. So they're proposing a retail use. We don't identify those uses according to the goods that they're selling. So for us, it's a retail use. It then moves to the fire department. The fire marshal office looks at the use and goes through and says, you need to meet these requirements. They required a certain set of sprinkler system. They installed that system, and they were able to move forward with their business license for operation.
Okay. All right. The next point I'd like to mention is, what if one of these...
Excuse me, Andy, can you go on and make your final comments? We do have some other individuals that may want to speak on this particular issue, and then we got 5 other items on the agenda. So
I understand.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. I would like to note that the lawyer spoke from 10:10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. in the very beginning, so I'd just like to note that.
I mean, he's representing the applicant, so.
And also, for the record, this is the public comment section
So I'd like to have equal opportunity is what I'm suggesting. So thank you. The one last issue is it goes along with the insurance going up. If one of these fireworks lands on the roof of a house, is that going to cause a fire? You know, in other words, this whole issue is promoting foolishness. And your primary responsibility, with all due respect, as government, is to protect the people. We're focusing on laws and ordinances and everything, but what we need to realize is that what God intended government to do. And God designed government to protect the people. So I'd like to respectfully remind you of that. And if you pass this variance, you're not protecting the people. And someone is going to be hurt. Someone's going to get seriously injured, or God forbid, somebody's going to die as a result of this decision. So who's going to be responsible if any one of these happens? The costs are much higher than just money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Michael Davis. I'm a veterinarian at Town and Country South Veterinary Clinic on Spring Street, right across the road from the fireworks store. I've been a patron of Fire King. My dad has also bought many fireworks. So from a business perspective, you know, I can understand that, and I think it's a good thing. But with any business, I think that there also needs to be responsibility in the way that a business is managed, as well as looking at going forward. And so the concern that I would have with this variance is that if the goal is to grow a business, ultimately at what point in time are you going to then need more and more containers? And then at which point in time, where then does that fall in the safety issues? For the actual ordinances, I am not sure on the going down all the way in the weeds of the exact ordinances on accessory containers and all of that. So that's not what I'm here to talk about. The only thing I wanted to say was just looking at it from an overall safety perspective. Once again, making sure that the city of Smyrna is doing their due diligence in that aspect. Obviously, owning many fireworks stores, shipping them internationally, there's a lot of safety that goes involved in that to make sure that that is covered. However, being a small business owner right across the street from a fireworks store, it is a little bit concerning in and of itself. So I think that that is something to take into account. But ultimately, I think it just needs to be looked at from a responsible manner of growth of a business and how are we going to make sure that everyone stays safe.
Hi, I'm Jamie Fine. I've been a resident of Smyrna for over 30 years. I'm also a small business owner in historic Marietta Square, so I deal a lot with city ordinances and regulations. As a small business owner, I deal with a lot of restrictions. I took a space in a historic district where I have a loading zone a half a block away from my space. I accept deliveries. I can't even get through my front door. I get pallets I have to break down. I have storage issues as well during peak seasons. My question is, how does this, or how do you see this variance benefiting other businesses in the community? Do you see it as a benefit if this exception is made? Is this a benefit to the Smyrna community and the other businesses? How?
I could. Do you want us to respond? I mean, they don't really want us to respond now.
Oh, okay. How does the, or to you guys, is this a benefit to other businesses? Is this a betterment to our community, or is this an exception for one business to their benefit, or does it better the whole community as a whole, the business community? Or is this an exception that is really for the benefit of one business to overcome a situation that it suits their situation specifically, or is it something that will better the business community of Smyrna? And I think that needs to be considered. Again, is it a hardship situation? I deal with it. We all deal with it in my business district. But it is the way the community is. I took my space. I improved my space. I did a lot of work on the space that my business is in. I invested. I provide jobs to people in my business community right up the street. I have limitations where my business is. The other businesses in my district have limitations. We deal with them. We just do. We know what we have. We took our spaces knowing where we are and where we're doing business. The question I have for this consideration is, does it better the exception on this variance? Does it better the business community as a whole, or is it an exception for this one particular business? And, is it a sole situation? That's all. And as a resident, I am at the Heights at Spring Road, which is directly across from the Sky King. Okay. And I know that if these containers are passed, I'm sure that the fire department will do its due diligence, but the safety is a concern. The traffic is a concern. The noise, the holiday situations, yes, it may be a few weeks, but it is a concern for the residents of my area. We have a lot of people with small children. We have people who work at different hours. It is a concern. If I'm out of town, I have pets. What's going to happen? Situations do concern. We had a plane that crashed at Dobbins in 1989. We had a tornado that hit Windy Hill Road in Smyrna, 1998. 2 years ago, we had that lovely chemical explosion right down the road near Walker School with the blue smoke. We saw it. Not likely that situations happen, but we know in this city that disasters can happen, they do happen, and we need to be prepared for that from a safety perspective. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak regarding this issue?
Hi, Patricia Turner. I live right across the street at Lexington Trace Townhomes. I have nothing new to add. I agree with everything that's been said here. I just want to voice my opposition to this. They knew the size of the building when they moved in, and now they're wanting to make it larger, if only for 30 days. They knew they needed at least 7,000 square feet, and they don't have it. So I don't think they should be granted this variance at all. And it is a safety issue. They can put up signs on the building saying no fireworks go off within 300 feet of the building, but they do. I live across the street. I know they do. It keeps us awake at night sometimes, and especially during the 4th of July season or even the New Year's Eve season. People don't pay attention to signs like that. So I just want to voice my opposition to it. Thank you.
Well, we've heard the comments, and of course, we'll be taking those things into consideration as well as the comments from the applicant and from our staff. So, with that said, I would like to entertain a motion, please.
I make a motion to deny variance request V16-16016, allow 2 accessory structures within the side yard for temporary storage, 0.328 acres, land lot 631-1725, Spring Road, where I see that a self-created hardship is present here, and then also that the accessory uses do not meet the requirements of the city ordinance 501.11. Make that in form of motion.
Second motion.
It's been motioned and properly second that we deny variance request V16016 to allow accessory structures within the side yard for temporary storage. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. I do want to let you know that you can appeal this board's decision to the mayor and council. You have 10 business days to submit that appeal in writing to our city clerk's office. So if you would like to do that, I encourage you to do it as soon as possible. Okay. Next item is a public hearing, variance request V16024, allow front yard setback reduction from 35 feet to 21 feet for the construction of a new single-family home, 0.407 acres, land lot 377, 2833 Stone Creek Road. Joe Powell is the applicant. Is Mr. Powell here? Can you step to the podium, please? And for the record, can you state your name and tell us about your variance request?
Absolutely. My name is Joel Powell. I live at 1152 Bank Street. This variance request is an unfortunate circumstance for me. I actually hired an engineer to place my house on the property. We've had several challenges. I can read the notes, the challenges that we've experienced with this particular lot. But they include this being a low point in the neighborhood, an unofficial storm collection point for storm drainage for the last 50, 60 years, which contaminated soils. We removed some 40 loads of tandem loads of just bad soil that we couldn't build, couldn't get any structure to it. We imported 100 loads or more of a combination of structural fill, which is a product that's a combination of gravel and dirt that will yield us a sound foundation. We have, in addition to that, we brought in, obviously 57 stone, 34 stone. We've put in 3 storm detention pits on the site that range between 5 feet in diameter to 15 feet in diameter, and they again act as a collection point for stormwater. Then we ran a pipe to convey this water across the property, and that runs the entire length of the property on Bank Street. From the easternmost point of the property to the corner lot at Stone Creek and Bank Street. On the northern boundary, I met Mr. Stokes out on site. There is a sewer line from a neighboring property that encroaches across the corner of our property, which after meeting with Mr. Stokes, it necessitated a change to our original site plan. If you look at our original plan, we were showing the house facing Stone Creek, parallel to Stone Creek, and where we had it placed, we would have taken either part of the house or part of our driveway directly across this neighboring sewer line. So in an effort to give them an opportunity to maintain their own sewer line and not put something permanent on top of it, we decided to turn the house so that it wasn't so parallel and that it would still give us a decent backyard, a decent placement on the lot. In all of the work that we did, or have been working on this lot since middle of December, we had substantial grading issues, as I mentioned earlier, but we had a stack of dirt 8 to 12 feet tall, basically, that ran down down Bank Street and then across in front of the house on Stone Creek. So we had we didn't have really good lines of sight to the street. That, in a combination of trying to turn the house and place it on structural fill that we were importing, we had our engineers out on at least 3 occasions, I believe 4 occasions, to help us place the house. We didn't want to encroach inside the setbacks. Finally, what we did is we had the engineer flip the house plan so that the garage would actually be on the right side of the house instead of the left. And this is where we created a little bit of a problem. I actually physically went to the engineer's office and sat down, and we literally cut out the house plan and flipped it over, and we're flipping it back and forth to place it on the house to yield, again, the best backyard, the most functional use, not encroaching on our storm sewer, not encroaching on the neighboring sewer, and trying to maintain some of the mature trees that are on the lot. When the engineer came out the next day to place our house, he placed the reverse image of what I was expecting. And because he was placing a corner for me to work from, and this is where I screwed up, I did not have him come back out and verify my placement before I started my foundation. He laid the reverse image of my house. I placed the image with the garage on the left side, and that protrudes further into the street. That, coupled with the dirt stacked out front and all the other moving around that we had attempted, created this need for a variance. Now, I do want to note that we're, I believe, 13.9 feet encroaching into the front setback. Because this is a corner lot, on the major side setback, you can encroach to 23 feet 3 inches or something like that. And so if we had placed the house on that side, we would be asking for a variance of about 2 feet. Unfortunately, I placed it on the front of the house with a 35-foot setback, and we ended up with the reverse image coming in at approximately 13 feet, which is why we're here today asking for variance. I don't know if there's any more I can add to that, but that's the situation in a nutshell. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to hear the case and hopefully approve our request for a variance.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. We'll have the staff make comments now.
Applicant is requesting a reduction of the front setback from 35 feet to 21 feet at 2833 Stone Creek Road. So, the applicant has pretty much explained the background of the request. Staff has done their best to pretend that there isn't a structure there already and look at the request on its own merits. We've come to the conclusion that if this was a request before us without the structure, being there already, would we look at it any differently? We agree that based on the information presented to us with the variance application, that this is a preferred alternative that compared with the other possible alternatives for this house placement, that if it were to be done all over again and this was a variance request we received, we would be comfortable recommending approval for that too. So it's not just that it's there already, so we have to recommend approval. That's not what our position is. Mr. Powell's explained that there's a storm drain on the south side of the property along Bank Street. There's a sewer line on the north corner of the lot, and there was structural fill brought in. With all of that combined, we think that, all things considered, this is a preferred alternative site plan. The applicant has submitted a supplemental house location plan that has a garage on the rear of the property with access off Bank Street to remedy this situation. And again, we would still support this site plan as it is, rather than removing additional trees, compromising the storm drain that's on the Bank Street side, and compromising the improvements that have already been put in place. So staff has looked at the request and developed what we think are ways that lessen the impact of the setback encroachment. So we've added certain conditions to the request that we think will mitigate any externalities that result from the setback reduction. We've recommended approval with 6 conditions. We've posted notice on the property, and the applicant has notified the adjacent properties. We've not heard any opposition. We have received communication from the community that certain things that they would like to see in this request. Mainly, they would like more brick on the elevations, since it would meet the sort of architectural style of the existing neighborhood. There were some concerns that what would happen with the sewer line on the north part of the property, since it's on their property and it belongs to someone else, which I don't have the answers to that. And so those are the only external comments we received that we don't think are addressed in our comments that the board can consider. But staff's recommendation is approval with these conditions. 1, approval of the requested variance shall be conditioned upon substantial compliance with the site plan referenced in Figure 7 submitted with the variance application. Figure 7 is a example in the staff memo, just for clarification. 2, the applicant will prepare a tree protection and replacement plan that meets requirements in Chapter 106 of the Smyrna Code of Ordinances. 3, the elevations facing Bank Street and Stone Creek shall not utilize cement lap siding. The material used on the remaining elevations shall be no more than 90% lap siding. 4, prior to certificate of occupancy, Public Works will inspect downspouts, gutters, and storm drain to ensure there are no negative stormwater impacts to adjoining properties. 5, the applicant will record a plat reflecting the location of the storm drain. 6, any fence greater than 4 feet in height will be no closer than 35 feet from the front property line on the north side of the property.
Any questions for the staff?
Joey, as the applicant, and really this is a question for the applicant, Mr. Powell, you just heard staff read off those 6 conditions. Are you familiar with those? Would you be in agreement with those conditions?
Yeah. One of them has changed since I got the notes. If I just read it so I'm clear. It's basically just a tree plan for the lot. Is that?
Yeah,
right?
I can explain.
Okay.
We had language out of the tree ordinance that specifically referred to street trees, and what we've done is just reference the tree ordinance in general, that where that language came from. So rather than requiring a specific set amount of trees or just referring to a specific language in the ordinance, we're just asking him to prepare a tree protection and replacement plan by a landscape architect so they can look at the existing trees in the lot, the overhead power lines, and contemplate all of that and prepare a plan that doesn't undermine the existing trees. It plants new trees in their best location.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. The only other thing I'd add is I believe it's as simple, the question about the sewer line and the neighbor that he brought up. I believe it's as easy as having the engineer put an easement for them to have access for repairs and maintenance. Scott, Mr. Stokes, you would know more about that than me. I just didn't want to put any solid surfaces on top of that house, driveway, etc. There's one other item that was brought up. Part of that I did a poor job of explaining. The plan that I brought forward that said, "Hey, we can come in off of Bank Street." It's not ideal. I mean, it's possible, but it would require removing some more trees. And these are mature trees. They're 80 feet tall, 2 and 3 feet in diameter, and it would be. I don't believe it's as safe an area to enter the property as it is off of Stone Creek, and I'd like to apologize to staff. They actually contacted me asking me if the house was too close, and I laughed. I really did not believe it, and I scoffed at the idea because I had literally hired an engineer to place this house, and it was only after he came back out to identify the actual location that we figured out what had happened, and that's on me. One of my guys, mentioned it to me at some point in the process, and I said, well, in my experience, an engineer might be off by a few inches. It's rare that they're off by a few feet. It never occurred to me that I had the house plans backwards, essentially. So I'd like to formally apologize to them for putting them in this situation in the first place. But if there's any other questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them.
So you accept the conditions?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I accept the conditions as presented. I don't have any issues. I don't have any issues with what I believe are the 6 conditions here, and the only change is the tree plan. No issues there.
Any other questions? This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak regarding this issue, I ask that you please step to the podium at this time.
Hi, I'm Susan Wilkinson, and I live at 2805 Stone Creek Road, 2 doors from two homes from the location of the house here. So I guess as far as what I'm listening to, and also, with the plans, I do have concerns with the encroachment on the Stone Creek side, which is 14 feet into the setback, which also shortens the length of the driveway. And what this is creating in that area. I've lived there for 30 years. 9 years ago, there wasn't any driveways there, and now there's 3 driveways there. and it is also when you're coming into the neighborhood from Stone Creek Road. So I have concerns about what that's creating for people that live in that, that access their homes through that area, with the number of driveways right there together, and they're all short. I do know that it already is a problem with cars that are in that parking in that area, and I know that from other neighbors as well, that it has been an issue. Sometimes that cars even park up on the sidewalk in that location. So anyway, what my question is, has the staff looked at that from a perspective of the length of the driveway to the curb, since that's that area that is being shortened 14 feet? And I think with my conversation with community development, and I think I heard Joey mention this as well, that they were opposed to having another driveway on Bank Street. But I can say before the house on the other corner was built, which is in the floodplain, the driveway for the existing house came off of Bank Street. So instead, you've actually removed one driveway and then added 3 as you turn into that to Stone Creek. So anyway, I guess my comment would be, I'm not sure that it would, adding a driveway on the Bank Street side within that area, it would create more of an issue. I think it really should be looked at from the Stone Creek side, and the 3 driveways, and that's all in the same area, and backing out from a planning perspective there. The other thing I'd like to ask, because it is a 14-foot encroachment into the setback, I respectfully ask that if it could be tabled so that perhaps some of this could be negotiated with the neighborhood, some of the, as far as the setback and the materials or anything. And I feel like requiring a landscape plan, I'm not sure that is doing anything for the neighbors as far as a variance, because I think that there's probably a minimum amount that would be done anyway to the house in terms of in order to sell it. There would be some landscaping done anyway, and making that part of the requirement for allowing the variance, I don't know that it really matters that much. I do feel that more importantly would be adding more brick to the structure so that it does fit in with the neighborhood would be more important. And I know from just conversations with people in the neighborhood that is an important feature in the neighborhood, because almost all the homes are 4-sided brick. So let's see, as far as the drainage issues, I know that this lot is a low point, and all the homes in that block were built in the 50s, so they're 50 to 60 years old now. So that is a low point. So any thing that was added to the lot, I understand the difficulties there with that lot, and having to bring soil in and build it up and add drainage, because that lot has always flooded. It always holds water since I've been living there. So, but I do appreciate what the Joel has done. I think it's an attractive home, and I appreciate that he's trying to build a home and working with all of those issues and adding the drain. And but I do, when I first started learning about the house, though, I was told that it was going to be within the R15 requirements. And that also is what I told neighbors when they asked about it. So, and also while I'm here, I'd like to say there was another resident here, and she wrote me a note that she had an emergency at Campbell High School, and she had to leave, and she wanted me to text when that came up, and I did text her, but I don't know if she'll come back, but she is a resident. Okay. Her name is Laura Pugh.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. You want to address the driveway, please?
Yes. The current home, the front of the building is, the closest point to the property line is 22 feet. There's an additional 13 feet to the back of curb. So that's 35 feet distance from the back of curb to the house. So that's a 35-foot driveway. There's no sidewalk on Stone Creek. So generally, if we have any driveway length requirements, it's 22 feet from back of sidewalk to leave appropriate space for a car parked in the driveway so it doesn't block a sidewalk. So given the circumstances, we don't have an issue with the driveway length. We think it's more appropriate to be on Stone Creek. None of the driveways in this area are on Bank Street. That's a heavily traveled road. On Bank Street, on Stone Creek and the street behind it, those houses have access off those two roads. So there's no, the variance that's being requested doesn't have anything to do with the driveway location, in our opinion, but it doesn't produce any problems for us being in this location. We would prefer it to be in this location than off of Bank Street.
Well, Joe, you had mentioned earlier in your presentation, and also we just heard comments, public comments, that it kind of addressed the facade veneer material. I think that both comments talked about. Well, wish there could be more brick. Can you talk about what we can and can't require with regard to exterior facades, or is that too vague of a question?
I don't know any limitations other than the house is partially constructed. So any limitations would be based on what the existing structure would allow. It's not like we're here negotiating before anything was built and can have an architect design certain things into the building or not. As far as zoning requirements or conditions, I don't think there are any restrictions. But I don't know when we specify certain percentages of certain materials, then we get into design. And I don't know that any of us want to design the house.
Yeah.
So that's where I have hesitancy, but anything that the applicant would agree to, that's, I guess, up to him or what the board would want to require. But there aren't any restrictions that I can think of.
Mr. Powell, have you had any conversations about brick and adding more brick? And
yes. Let me state real quick. I met with both neighbors that directly connect to this property. Sat with Mr. Rohn and his wife at length. They are directly behind us. If the variance is turned down, I'm going to have to implement my other plan, which is to build another garage closer to the Rohns. They're not in favor of that. That's the plan that would require me to take down more trees. They're not in favor of that. Sharon, and I forget her name, she's next door to me on Stone Creek. I've met with her, and she is in favor of the plan. She wants the construction to stop, as anybody that's lived next to a construction zone wants it over as soon as possible. It's just terrible. It's terrible on the neighbors. Part of the issue, the reason we're here today, is what Joey, Mr. Staubs, identified, is we're 35 feet off of the curb. That's pretty close to twice what the minimum is. The only thing I'd be hesitant about offering to put a turnaround in on the driveway is I get back into the issue with the sewer line that encroaches, and I'd be putting something on top of that. So I'd be hesitant about that. I generally build a wide driveway for my houses because I grew up in Smyrna, and one of the biggest problems we have with all these 60-year-old homes is they were designed for one car. And over the years, you see people with two driveways, so I'm hesitant to increase the size of that concrete footprint out front. To the issue of brick, I've built a very similar house to this twice in the last 12 months, sold both of those houses, had great success. It had lap siding on both of them. Sold one in excess of $460,000, sold the other one in excess of $540,000. And it's a mixture of elements. The designer of this house is Roger Caldwell of Caldwell, Klein and Marietta. He builds beautiful homes. He designs beautiful homes. Hopefully I build beautiful homes. I spoke with him yesterday about this exact issue, and he thought, in his opinion, that the house becomes very heavy with that much brick on it. Part of the problem is I don't do one-sided architecture. I don't do two-sided architecture. My houses are four-sided. I take the brick water table all the way around. I take the brick basements all the way around. I do brick patios so that when you show up on the front door, there's no concrete. It's brick. It's a very nice finished look. If I start playing with the amount of brick on this house and try to raise that elevation up, I've got this real heavy brick house, and I'm going to start eliminating architectural elements that are designed to make this house attractive. Now, I have no problem saying I won't use lap siding anywhere on the house. I can design around that. I could create an elevation on Stone Creek that would not heavy the house, and I would have no problem with saying, let's use the Stone Creek elevation and do either a brick or stone front. But once you start doing it all the way around the house, it just, to me, takes away from the design that it was originally created to be. A design that I've sold twice in 12 months. And people like it. I mean, I don't want to design a brand new house to look like a 50-year-old house. There's a reason. And that's not to demean the 50-year-old houses. I do a lot in this community to preserve our old houses, to make them better, to preserve our lot sizes, which is why this never came up as a zoning request or for a lot split. 17,000 square foot lot. There are plenty of developments in this town that have two lots in that size. And that's not my intent. My only concern, well, let me just say this. I would rather you guys take action on this item versus table it. I'm already losing time moving forward, and I'd rather implement my plan either way. And that plan, if I get denied, that plan could look completely different than what I'm proposing today. And I don't want to veil threats or nothing like that, but I do this for a living. So I need this project to take the next step, whatever that step may be, so that I can move on to my next project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
I just wondered if, Joey, do you have the aerial view of the property that you could put on the screen or that they could see?
Well, they've got the memo.
So you can't put it up there on the screen.
They have the.
Okay. So I guess one thing, I know Joey said that they didn't think that putting the driveway on Bank Street was the right idea, but I think from what I'm hearing, that they could move the garage and the driveway to Bank Street and it would meet the R15 requirements. But what I'm asking and looking at here, there used to be a driveway on Bank Street, and from the original house, and that was just 8 or 9 years ago. And now, with the way the construction is gone, you're going to have 3 driveways that are all right there together at an entrance to the Stone Creek from Bank Street. And you don't have a driveway in that area, but there are driveways throughout Cheney Woods on Bank Street. They're spaced, and I would say that where a driveway for the original older home across the street from this was appropriately placed. So I don't know that staying within the R15 and putting a driveway on Bank Street would be a problem, but I mean, I guess I want to respectfully say that Joey doesn't live in the neighborhood and he doesn't come and go in that intersection numerous times a day, where people are parking and backing up, and it creates a situation there. And, I think that, to me, also, I saw the stipulations yesterday, and they addressed the elevation on the Bank Street side and the Stone Creek side, but due to the encroachment of 14 feet on the Stone Creek side, I felt like that the conditions that were placed weren't really addressing that encroachment, because it's not encroaching on Bank Street. And it's not encroaching on the other corner of Stone Creek. It's that corner. And coming from Bank Street, that's, you see that side. I heard Joel say he wouldn't put lap siding on that side, but I'm not clear on what would that side look like, or what any of it would look like, from what I'm hearing. But anyway, I still think that I have concerns about that intersection right there, that close to Bank Street, and people that have to come and go to their homes at that intersection where you have 3 driveways that are all backing up to each other. Okay, thank you. Do y'all have this? I mean, this doesn't show the new, where the new driveway would be, but
yeah.
Okay.
Is the other individual here you said wanted to speak? Oh. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Doward Wilkinson. I'm at 2805 Stone Creek Road. And also I own a home at 2804 Hillside Road, right behind our house on Stone Creek. I like the house. I mean, my concern is probably something Joel can't address, but maybe you guys can consider, or community development consider. If we're coming forward 14 feet with the house, after Joel sells the house, I'm fairly concerned about somebody putting a fence up, one of those 8-foot fences that is going to come forward so far and block everybody's view as they're driving down Stone Creek towards Bank. So, okay, the house is there and the driveway will be there, and then we'll see that, which is fine. But somebody, when the house is sold, can then at that point say, hey, I want to put a fence up, and come forward into that 14 feet, because the house has moved forward 14 feet. At that point, they can bring their fence that much forward, and we could have an 8-foot wooden wall as we're driving down Stone Creek. So I don't really know how you address that after the house is sold, but it concerns me that, if we allow this variance, which, I'm kind of okay with, that after the fact that maybe there could be some limitation or restriction on bringing a fence into that 14 feet. Does that make sense? I'm not sure I'm...
Yeah, I think it does, and I don't disagree with that, and I think that's what staff had added in their sixth, and this may be what you're talking about, but I just want to read just to make sure. The sixth condition that would accompany, hypothetically, this staff recommendation for approval would be that any fence greater than 4 feet in height will be no closer than 35 feet from the front property line on the north side of the property.
So that would then bring the any possible fence, any 8-foot fence or 6 or 8 foot fence,
no closer than 35
feet, which
and
is
the north
back
side
to
of the property
back
is,
to the
is,
original point.
Right.
Okay.
And also, and staff can clarify if I get this wrong, but sometimes this board has to contemplate variances with regard to fences, and fence height specifically, and where can they be. And I would imagine that in any future potential, even with this stipulation on this, if anybody were to want to build a fence, as you described, that would create a whole new variance, and site and distance requirements are measured by staff and considered whether it's recommended for approval or denial as well.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but I've seen us do some interesting fence work around here where somebody's just put up a piece of plywood and called it a fence too. So, I mean, we take a very personal view of people's property rights, and if somebody comes in and says, hey, that's my home, I want to build a fence and I want to bring it forward, they'll just come and get a variance, and then all of a sudden we'll have that wall back up down there. So I just have some concerns about that going forward. I don't know how to address it. I think they've done it but I think when Joel sells the house, that will these variances, they won't be in place. I mean, somebody can come forward and ask for an additional variance for an 8-foot fence 25 feet from the...
Right. They'd have to go through the variance application process. Yeah.
Okay. I guess there's no way to limit that, but all right. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make 2 points of clarification. We keep hearing the number 14 feet of encroachment. On the front left component of this garage, it encroaches 12.25 feet. On the right side of that garage, it encroaches 5.5 feet. So it's diminishing to nothing as it moves across the house from left to right. We keep hearing like 14, and it may seem like a little thing, but it's not, and it is vanishing to 0 before it gets to the opposite side of the house, before it gets to the laundry room, which is in between the garage and the front door. So I just wanted to clarify that one item. And when you sell a house, you can't determine the fence, but I think the zoning that we're doing today, the variance request we're doing today, this will live with this property forever. So if there's ever a fence that's requested for this property, that'll have to abide by what is in place here.
If the board were to recommend approval with conditions, what on the plat that the applicant's required to record, we would have these conditions part of that plat, so that it's that condition 6 that restricts the location of the fence on the north side. That would be part of the plat. So any homeowner buying the property that got a copy of the plat would know these conditions: location of the sewer line, the location of the storm drain, all that.
I have another question just for clarification. Is there a easement right that the neighboring property has with their sanitary sewer going through the property. Is there an easement?
That'll be brought up during our recommendation.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
With respect to all testimony heard, both from the applicant, from staff, and from public comment, been a motion to approve variance request V16-024, allow front yard setback reduction from 35 to 21 feet for the construction of new single-family home, 0.407 acre land lot 377 located at 2833 Stone Creek Road for the applicant Joel Powell.
Second, I'd also like to add a stipulation that prior to certificate of occupancy, that evidence of a sewer easement between this property and the adjacent property owner to cover the sewer easement be verified prior to a certificate of occupancy.
I'd like to also amend my motion to approve to also add the 6 stipulations as read earlier by staff, plus the stipulation just read by Scott Stokes.
And again, the record, the applicant, are you okay with the additional stipulation?
I agree with the 7 stipulations as presented, yes.
Thank you. It's been motioned and properly second that we approve variance request V16024. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item is a public hearing, variance request V16025, allow rear setback reduction from 30 feet to 14 feet for the addition on a single-family home, 0.20 acres, land lot 561, 1439 Whitfield Street. William Kaiser?
Yes, that's him.
And
I'm
good afternoon.
Griff Chalfont, and I'm representing him. I'm his general contractor.
Okay, all right.
So,
can you tell us about your request, please?
Yes. What we've got here is, I don't know if you've got the plat in front of you, but this here is the existing house right here, and we're talking about adding a sunroom 12 by 15 back in. This was over the line, the rear setback to begin with forever, and we were going to extend it, which makes it over the setback also. But we're adding a 12 feet by 15 foot addition in the rear there. I think the staff seemed like from their description that they were okay with it. And I don't know, haven't heard back from any of the other homeowners that around.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. We'll have staff comment then.
Okay.
Keep this to the point since we're running a little later than usual. The request is for a reduction in the rear setback from 30 feet to 14 feet at 1439 Whitfield Street. It's an existing non-conforming structure. It's currently 14 feet from the rear property line. So the applicant is requesting to continue that existing building line and carry it to the side, and for a 14 by 18 addition. So it's an additional 14 feet that house will be extended. We've posted notice on the property. They've notified adjacent properties. We have not heard any opposition to this. We've reviewed the request. We've recommended approval. And that is all.
Any questions for the staff? This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak regarding this issue, I ask that you please step to the podium at this time. All right, seeing no one, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve variance request V16-025, allow rear yard setback reduction from 30 feet to 14 feet for the addition on a single-family home, .20 acres, land lot 561, 1439 Whitfield Street.
Second motion.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve variance request V16025. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a public hearing, variance request V16026, allow accessory structure in side yard with setback reduction from 10 feet to 6.6 feet, 0.26 acres, land lot 419, 2300 Robin Lane. Ronald Snyder is the applicant.
Good morning. I'm Ronald Snyder.
Okay, and can you tell us about your variance request, please?
Okay. What it is, I'm going to put a one of these aluminum carports on my driveway on the other side of the house to park my car under. The edge of my driveway is only 6 foot, basically about 6'6", 6'7" from the property line. My neighbor next door, their carport is only 6 feet, from the property line. I understand it's supposed to be 10 or so that's why I'm here. I'm asking, to get an okay so I can either put it up or not. And I don't know what else to say. I'm not an attorney like some of these guys that came in here. I'm just a homeowner.
All right. Any questions for the applicant?
What's the size of the carport?
Carport will be a 12 by 40 is what I'm looking at. 'Cause I have to park the cars, the two cars in front of each other rather than on side to side. Obviously, I don't have room, and that's what it is. And it'll be set back even with the adjacent, carport, which brings it back about probably 10 or 12 feet from the front, of the house. So everything's in line. My house is the newest house in the neighborhood by nearly 50 years. All the homes in there were built like in 59 and 60. In fact, I lived there for 30 some odd years, paid a home off, and this was the only lot that was never built on. I built a new house there 12 years ago, and it's a small lot, so I'm kind of crunched in, but it's, I don't know. I don't want to go over a bunch of stuff that's not necessary. Stay with the facts.
Thank you.
All right, well, at this time, we'll have comments from my staff.
Okay, sure.
The applicant's requesting a side setback reduction from 10 feet to 6.6 feet for the construction of a carport. As he's stated, it is a 12-foot wide by 40 feet in length standalone carport. There's a differential in grade from the side of the house to the driveway, because we tried to work on another solution, connecting it to the house or, other alternatives. But due to the grade and other factors, this was really the only option that we could see. So usually these are put on an existing driveway, and the driveway can be 5 feet off a property line, but there's a 10-foot setback on a structure, so there's always a conflict there. We've seen other variances like this before, and they've been approved. We look at what are the externalities that it might cause, if any impacts on the adjacent properties, and seeing how there's sufficient separation between this new structure and the existing adjoining structure. There didn't seem to be any fire hazard or any kind of stormwater impact. So based on that, we've recommended approval. Signage has been posted. He's notified adjacent properties. We have not heard any opposition to the request, and therefore we recommended approval with one condition, that approval be conditioned upon the development of the property in substantial compliance with the site plan submitted with the variance application.
Mr. Snyder, are you in agreement with the one condition as stated?
I'm sorry, what was the one condition?
Can you reread it to him?
That you put the carport where you say you're going to put it on your application.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. You have to build it like you
Yeah.
are requesting to in the application.
As I intend
You can't vary from the
So that's what, when I apply for the permit?
Right.
Okay, that's my first time doing this stuff,
Right.
trying to figure out what the next step is.
Right.
Okay, so after this, if y'all approve it, then I apply to the city for a permit, put it up. Okay, yeah, I understand all that now.
All right. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak regarding this issue, I ask that you please step to the podium at this time. Seeing no one, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve various requests V16-026 to allow accessory structure in side yard with setback reduction from 10 feet to 6.6 feet for 0.26 acre land lot 419 located at 2300 Robin Lane for the applicant Ronald Snyder. I can't talk today. With the one condition as read by staff.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve variance request V16026. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is a public.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Next item is a public hearing, variance request V16027. Allow accessory structure height increase from 15 feet to 22 feet for a detached garage, 0.52 acres, land lot 5263571 King Springs Road, Wang Yi.
Yes.
Okay. I apologize.
That's okay.
And can you tell us about your variance request, please?
What we're trying to do is build a garage. The way the house sits, and I think we kind of looked into it. I think the original builder of the house, because the original the mailbox is actually off of King Springs Road, but there's no driveway there. I think that was the original driveway, but the new builder put the driveway off of Cliffwood Drive, and doing so created a situation with the driveway and the garage, which is on the right-hand side, kind of an odd way to come into the house. So basically, I made this big turn, and so we're kind of limited on just in that factor. So, but our ideal was to kind of build a bigger garage, a 3-car garage, separated from the house. So, being that it can be classified as an accessory structure, we can be 5 feet from the back, and but the variance is for going from a 15 to 22 foot height to build a loft space above there, and that's what I'm here for today, to see if we can get that variance approved.
Any questions for the applicant?
What's the purpose of the loft?
It's just an extra play space for the kids, because the weird thing is our house, people think that they always ask us, your house it must be big inside, but it's really not. It's deceptively big. Got this massive chimney, massive roof, massive attic, but the space down below, it's really not that much. With my mother and the 2 kids and my wife living there, believe it or not, it's really pretty tight. The apartment they have, I guess you'd call it an in-law suite above the garage. It's pretty small. It's got 8-foot ceilings, and they've built it to be a full apartment with the bathroom, a bedroom, and a kitchen. But it's very, very tight. The kids don't really have a lot, and the way that this house is placed, the architect we're working with said, is why did they put the house so far back? Creating this, they put in the middle, and they didn't utilize the land properly, and so so dealing with what we got. So, but we thought if we can have a garage back there as an accessory structure, which we're allowed to, if we could just kind of add another space. Now, another thing too is because the height of our home now, it's actually 29 feet tall right now. Not the main house, but the garage with the in-law suite above, and so we wanted to at least stay close to or below it to kind of not affect the design of the house and also not to affect anybody else around, because obviously if it's something bigger, might affect somebody around there. But if we put something similar or smaller than that, then we wouldn't. I would think we wouldn't affect anybody around us for for any reason.
So your garage with the loft that you're planning on.
Yes.
It's a 3-car garage.
Yes.
How will you access the loft?
The loft.
Uh-huh.
We were going to. That's one thing that we're working with the architect, and when we do the permitting, is either stairs on the inside of the building, or what we're going to do is we have a survey now. We think that it's actually not correct, meaning because right now it says that we're square footage of the footprint of the house is 2,960 square feet. We think it's actually just a tad bit bigger, which at 25%, because right now we're at 720 square feet. But we could be up to 740 square feet, which is actually 25%. But if we can come up a little bit to about 760 square feet, then the architect can put an exterior, just not a deck, but just stairs to come up to a door on the outside. If not, then we'll have to go in from the inside, a small stair to access that way.
Thanks.
Yes.
All right. Well, at this time, we'll have questions by the staff, please.
The applicant is requesting an increase in accessory structure height from 15 feet to 22 feet at 3571 King Springs Road. The applicant has covered most of the details. This is an existing single-family home. It has an attached garage. From the street, from King Springs, the garage does not look like a garage. It looks like a continuation of the house. It's only from the back going in the driveway do you see garage doors and know that that's a garage. So by adding a separate detached garage, it wouldn't look like there's two garages there. We understand the applicant's desire to match the existing architectural style of the existing home in the detached garage, trying to match the roof height and building materials. And in order to do that, they need a increase in the allowable height for an accessory structure. So in our review, we've analyzed it, recommended approval with conditions, mainly that deal with it becoming a separate dwelling unit, because it's not, the ordinance does not allow separate dwelling unit as to be rented for gain or otherwise. So there usually what the threshold is for us seeing something as a separate dwelling unit is a full kitchen, and we've added a condition that that the structure may not contain a full kitchen or be rented or occupied for gain. And then the other condition is that its approval is conditioned upon substantial compliance with the site plan submitted with the variance application. An accessory structure by right can be 5 feet from the rear property line, 10 feet from the side property line. This structure is 10 feet off both property lines. The adjacent properties are further up on their respective lots. So none of them are positioned now where this proposed structure will be. So it's not like it will be imposing on any other existing structures. So, yes, we've recommended approval with those two conditions.
For the, pardon me, for the applicant, do you agree to the two conditions as stated?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. Any questions for the staff? This is a public hearing. If anyone else would like to speak regarding this issue, can you please step to the podium at this time? Seeing no one, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve variance request V16-027, accessory structure height increase from 15 feet to 22 feet for detached garage, 0.52 acres, land lot 526, 3571 King Springs Road, with the following conditions: that approval shall be conditioned upon the substantial compliance with the site plan submitted with the variance application, and that the detached accessory structure shall not contain a full kitchen or be rented or occupied for gain.
Second motion.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve variance request V16027. All in favor, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval of May 11th, 2016 License and Variance Board meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the May 11, 2016 License and Variance Board meeting minutes.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve the May 11th License and Variance Board meeting minutes. All in favor, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to declare this meeting adjourned at 12:25 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah, right.